All right, you give me the signal.
Here and welcome everybody that is on the live stream at home. Thank you for tuning in to this very, very important SNAP benefits workshop. We're very excited and honored to have Molly from the Greater Chicago Food Depository here to tell you about all the changes coming up and answer all of your questions that you may have. So please give her a warm welcome. This is Molly.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, okay. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Molly Dubow. I am the Senior Manager of Advocacy at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. I'm very excited to be talking to you all. Louder? Okay. I will be able to answer as many questions as I can. You can very easily stump me with specific case questions, so I don't want to overstate my ability to answer everything, but should you stump me, I've got a team of people back at the office that I can help answer those questions. So what we're going to be talking about today is the state of hunger in Illinois generally, in Chicago right now, why SNAP is so important as a program in combating hunger and making sure people have the food that they need, and the ways in which SNAP has been cut and how those cuts are going to impact all of us, right? And ending on what you can do, what we can all do to continue to fight to make sure that all of our neighbors in Illinois have the food that they need to thrive. So starting off with the state of hunger in Illinois. It may not surprise you, I know that with the government shutdown, there were a lot of things about hunger and food insecurity and SNAP that were kind of illuminated on a national level in ways that it hadn't been before. But as a very general, large overview, hunger in Illinois, Feeding America, which is the national network of food banks across the country, estimates that 1 in 8 people in Illinois are facing hunger and are experiencing food insecurity. And that's an average for the whole state, right? So you can see, this is their map. The darker spots are where there's more food insecurity, lighter spots is where there is less food insecurity. You can, of course, kind of see where Chicago and Cook County is right in there. Illinois households would need roughly $1.12 billion added to their food budget to afford adequate food. And that is an estimate made by Feeding America based on average food prices and average spending on food by families. When looking at Cook County and Chicago specifically, and the work of the Food Depository, I think this slide really illuminates the heightened level of need we are already experiencing before any of these changes are taking place, right? So in fiscal year 2019, we served over 120,000 household visits per month at our partners, our local food pantry partners. We have about 850 food pantry partners. In fiscal year 2025, we served close to 200,000 households per month, which is an increase of 60% from fiscal year 2019. In fiscal year 2019, we distributed about 70 million pounds of food. And in fiscal year 2025, we distributed 115 million pounds of food across Chicago and Cook County, which again is about a 60% increase from FY25 or from FY19. That again, just to double down on it, this is the state of hunger that we are in before any policy changes that impact SNAP are taking effect. So there's already this almost invisible heightened need that we've been experiencing since the pandemic that never went away. To just kind of reiterate the point one more time, food insecurity in Chicago and Cook County, 1 in 5 Chicago households is experiencing food insecurity, and 1 in 4 Chicago households with children is experiencing food insecurity. So we saw that it was 1 in 8 for Illinois in general. It is higher where there are more people, right? So 1 in 5 for Chicago and Cook County, and 1 in 4 for the same area if that household has children. So that is kind of where we are at level setting as we enter this conversation about SNAP and the upcoming changes to the program. So, first and foremost, SNAP has been in the news, so there might be some ways in which you are familiar with SNAP that you weren't before, but I really like to emphasize why SNAP matters. First and foremost, for every one meal that the food banks provide, and that's every food bank across the entire country and all of their network of food pantries, SNAP provides 9. So there is simply not a world in which the elimination of SNAP is something the food banks can pick up. We were not built for it. It is not the system that it was designed to be in. The Greater Chicago Food Depository is already serving 60% more people than it was 5-6 years ago, and 60% more food. And yet, we couldn't grow 9 times that amount. Additionally, I really like to emphasize that SNAP, while on its face is a food assistance program, it is also an economic multiplier and generator. It is estimated that for every dollar spent on SNAP, it's generating between $1.50 and $1.80 in local economic activity. If you think about it, the reason is that that is federal money being put on an electronic benefits transfer card, which functions like a debit card for a person, and they go to their local store to buy food. And so that's money that is coming from the federal government getting spent at local stores. Those stores are able to purchase more, they're able to hire more staff. They're able to extend their hours. If it's a local store, maybe they're purchasing more local goods and produce. You can see how easily the money starts turning in a situation like that. So, who here has heard of something called the One Big Beautiful Bill? Yeah, I figured this group would know about it. Not our favorite name, but is the only name that people really know it by, so we kind of have to keep calling it that. So Congress passed and the president signed a bill on July 4th, 2025, called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. On top of that bill cutting $1 trillion from Medicaid, which will be, of course, an entirely different discussion that needs to be had. This bill cut $200 billion from SNAP. It is the largest cuts to SNAP and Medicaid in history. We know already that the need for food assistance will surge. We saw firsthand what happened the first 3 weeks of November when there was no SNAP benefits for the first time in program history, and the way that lines were out the door. The loss of SNAP benefits will impact local economies. There'll be less money spent at grocery stores, fewer jobs, and less food produced because of that, right? It's a shrinking of the economy. The way the bill specifically will cut SNAP is politically complicated, which is on purpose. And so we are going to talk about the three major ways that this bill cuts SNAP. There are some additional ways that the bill kind of finagles cuts from the program, but these three in the red highlighted box are the kind of major ways that this bill is cutting the program. Generally, overall, the impact in Illinois, there are almost 2 million people who are receiving SNAP benefits, and they will see their true value of their benefits decrease over time, regardless if they lose their benefits entirely. SNAP recipients are at risk of losing benefits due to work reporting requirements, which we will get into. We will talk a little bit about the changes to lawfully present immigrants, and the cost that it's going to cost the state of Illinois in order to be able to just keep the program running at all. I should also mention, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I will repeat it into the mic for the live stream people, but feel free to interrupt me. Okay, the first and potentially most catastrophic cut to the program is what is called the state cost shift. So many states, including Illinois, now has to prepare to pay a portion of SNAP benefits. Beginning in October of 2027, states will be required to cover a significant portion of SNAP benefits. The rules as they are written would require Illinois to pay up to $800 million per year to keep SNAP available. That is $800 million per year just to keep the program open, running at all, not to improve the program, not to do anything that in a different version of our lives we wanted to do to make the program better in Illinois. This is simply to money that needs to be spent just to be able to have the program at all. Because unfortunately, and I will get into this in the next slide, if Illinois can't pay this bill, we lose SNAP entirely. So how did we get this number? How did they get this number? Historically, if you look on the box on the left, benefits themselves, the actual money being spent on the card, are paid 100% by the federal government. Since this program was invented or created in the 60s, right? A lot of reasons for that, a lot of smart economic reasons for that I won't get into, but safe to say it was designed to be paid by the federal government in entirety. The change, starting in October of 27, will require states to pay a portion of SNAP benefits based on something called the payment error rate. Now, this is one of those kind of politically complicated things that they did. Payment error rate sounds really scary, and it sounds like something that are like major mistakes that the state of Illinois and the Illinois Department of Human Services has been making in distributing these benefits. We don't necessarily have time to dig into all of the history of what is considered a payment error rate, but an error rate is both an over or underpayment of SNAP. When you consider a person using SNAP, they are self-reporting their income. Somebody who's working often has 2 jobs. They have, multiple, there's so many different piles of paperwork a person has to fill out just to receive the benefits. It's reasonable to assume that somebody is going to make a mistake in their reporting, that a case manager might make a mistake in the way that they check a box for somebody, right? It doesn't mean it's full of waste, fraud, and abuse, which is what likes to get thrown around a lot. It simply means that there were errors made in calculation that were discovered and corrected. But the federal government has decided that based on a state's payment error rate, they will determine the amount that state has to pay in the cost share. So unfortunately, Illinois is at the highest level. I should mention again that, or I should mention, I guess for the first time, that Illinois is amongst neighbors and friends in this highest tier. It is mostly, as we would call, blue states, or states that are more focused on access than they are kind of bureaucratic barriers towards the program, and have more people on the program that tend to have a higher payment error rate, right? Our neighbors in Iowa have less than 6, so they don't have to pay anything. So we would have to pay 15% of our SNAP benefits, which doesn't sound that much, but we receive almost $5 billion in SNAP benefits per year. And so the 15% adds up to $700 million per year. And that would start, that bill we are expecting in October of 2027. On the right-hand side, you'll see the other change, which is that historically, since the dawn of the SNAP program, the administrative cost, the cost to actually administer the program through the technology used, through case management, through paperwork filing, has been split between federal and state 50-50. This bill makes it so that the state has to pay 75% of administrative costs and the federal government will only pay 25%, which, again, for a state like Illinois, which has a high population and a lot of people using the program, will add an additional $80 million per year, plus another $20 million that is being estimated for the additional caseworkers, the additional technology, all the additional tools that are going to be needed to implement the other changes. So you add all of that together is where we get the $800 million per year. Unfortunately, the administrative cost change is happening in October 1st, 2026. So that's coming this year. And then the benefit cost sharing is starting the year after. Any questions on that one? Yeah, Representative Candy. Mm-hmm. Ours is so much higher. Yes. Yes. So I will say somebody from IDHS would give a more wrapped up answer than I can give. But her question was, how is it that Iowa has such a lower rate, payment error rate than Illinois? The reason is kind of twofold. One, there are simply fewer people living in Iowa. Two, they just have not had the determination and focus towards access to the program that a state like Illinois has. And so there are historically ways that states are allowed to choose to make things easier for people to apply for and receive benefits, that Illinois has taken up all of them, right? And always been under the assumption that, we'll find the error should there one occur and we'll fix it. But first, we should make sure that more people are getting the food. That's not necessarily the attitude of all states and all departments that are handling this program across the country. I will say we got a little bit extra kind of knife in the gut on the 10% error rate issue, because any state that has an error rate higher than 13% has a delay in having to pay the state cost share. The reason for that being They needed the senator from Alaska's vote, and Alaska's payment error rate is 70%. And so yeah, I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know. So I will say comparative states like New York and California have a delay. Our neighbors in Michigan have a payment error rate. They're the closest kind of in comparison to us. They have a payment error rate that's like just at 10%. So they got luckier here because they're in the bracket right below us. So that's probably our best like one-to-one comparison is Michigan. But yeah, again, politically, this is all really complicated and kind of nonsense. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes, yes, exactly. The errors were found and fixed, but they're still reported. But yes, due to an audit. And the audits come delayed, and so there's an element of unsuredness of how much our bill is actually going to be in October of 2027, because we will not know this year's kind of payment error rate until the summer before that. So there's a lot of like, well, we're gonna need to pay it. We just don't know exactly what the bill is going to be, yeah.
So Illinois doesn't come up with $800 million for
Yes, so the reason for that being that SNAP is what is called, the question was if Illinois can't pay, the program disappears. The reason for that being is SNAP is what is called an entitlement program. Entitlement, unfortunately, has a very negative connotation now. But what it means is simply if you are somebody who is income qualified for the program, you legally get it. You get to have it. And so there's no waiting lists. That's part of the reason that the federal government has always been the one to pay the benefits, because the federal budget is capable of growing and shrinking and being flexible in ways state budgets aren't. But legally, if let's say Illinois could only pay $400 million per year instead of $800 million, and then the federal government would only match based on the $400 million, so wouldn't give us the full amount that we know we need to distribute to the folks who use SNAP in Illinois. Then we would run out of money for the people who are qualified for SNAP in our state, which then means that we are being unlawful, essentially. We're not following the rules of the program because we're turning people away who can't be turned away, and so then the program legally has to disappear because we're not doing it right. Yes, it is what they want, yes. Yeah, no, it's okay. Yes. Yes. So her question was, the president continues to threaten SNAP, specifically against states led by people he doesn't like. Yes, anything that he is saying about SNAP now, and anything, the pause in SNAP that happened during the government shutdown, anything he said about SNAP now is all in it. Like, this is already law now. So anything he's saying now is in addition. The somewhat good news there is that they say a lot of stuff. And so what you might be referring to is that the USDA Secretary, Brooke Rollins, went somewhere and said that all the states that are suing about there's a specific portion of this that has to do with immigrants that I'll talk about briefly. States sued about it because, again, this whole bill is contradictory to established law. And so our Attorney General is one of the Attorney Generals that signed on to that lawsuit, and now they're attempting to retaliate against the states that did that. I can't speak to the future of what will happen, but it is my understanding it is not legal, but doesn't mean they won't try. But yeah, that it's definitely, I mean, we're alert on all threats, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Yep. I know. You'd think that they would. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Amen. Amen. So her question had to do with the fact that, a very great point about the fact that Walmart is the largest employer in America and is also almost everybody who works for them, it qualifies for SNAP because they don't pay a living wage. I completely agree with you, 100%. Yeah, SNAP again. Legally, you're not allowed to like You're not, for a good reason. You're not allowed to discriminate against like SNAP customer versus non-customer. So there might be a lawyer might have to take a look at the idea of saying your whole company can't have SNAP because of XYZ reason. But they can't spend it at Walmart. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I agree. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, if you, I honestly love that idea because ultimately what we're all doing as taxpayers is just subsidizing them. So, like, obviously we're all here because we believe food is a basic human right and we want people to eat, but all this is subsidizing corporations. Yeah, so definitely something, I mean, it's time to get creative for sure.
So this means the citizens of Illinois will have to pay more to keep SNAP alive.
Yeah. Yes. With the asterisk that ideally we are passing progressive revenue that impacts the average Joe Schmo less than it impacts like billionaires and corporations, but yeah.
Bottom line is, if you saw the map of Illinois, the dark green spots are not just Chicago.
No, agreed.
It's all western
Yep.
Illinois, all the way down
Yep.
south.
Yep.
Happens to be partly a different political view down there,
Yep.
but they're getting the benefits.
Yep.
They're losing them.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Agreed. So his question is basically that we're paying all this money just to keep the program that we currently don't have to pay this money for, and that is correct. Exactly. That's to me the cruelest part of this whole bill. It's just wild. So I am going to move on to the second major change, but feel free to continue to interrupt and ask questions. I'm happy to continue the conversation. So that is potentially the biggest change to the program because it has the potential of making a world where Illinois doesn't have SNAP at all, right? The second major change is the most immediate, like large-scale change that is being implemented right now, which is an expansion of what are called work requirements. So first, here's just a bit of a definition of work requirements. Some SNAP recipients must work, volunteer, or participate in an employment or training program for 80 hours a month. Recipients who do not meet that work requirement or qualify for an exemption only get 3 months of SNAP in a fixed 3-year period. These recipients can get SNAP benefits again during the 3-year period if they become exempt or start meeting the work requirements. So basically, in layman's terms, you can't lose your job or otherwise be unable to prove through layers of bureaucracy that you have a job that you can prove, establish well enough through, again, the layers of bureaucracy. If you lose your job and can't prove it, you only get 3 months of SNAP for 3 years until you get your job back or a job back. But if you lose that job again and you've already gotten those 3 kind of free months in that 3-year period, that you're SOL. So, yeah, you know, nothing motivates somebody to go job hunting like not having money to pay for groceries, which is what this is, essentially. Yes, great question. That is more of a technical IDHS question of how to prove how that they're searching for a job. I also have some information on this slide deck that I'll send to you and Lynn about specifics about what counts as an exemption. You'll see that exemptions were mentioned a few times. Illinois, because we live in a state that again prioritizes people having access to the program, the Food Depository has been working very closely with the state to try and make this expansion of work requirements, which I'll get to in a second, as lenient as possible, and to make the ability to submit an exemption to the work requirements as easy as possible to try and keep as many people on the program as we can, right? There are going to be people who lose access, but the state of Illinois is trying really hard to keep people on the program as best we can. Yeah. Yes. Medical exemption. So the question is, what kind of exemptions are there? It would be, like physical or mental disability, lack of transportation, childcare issues. There's a whole list that one of the slides in the appendix has. So you guys can get them at the end of the presentation or tomorrow when I send it. So let me just go into the change really quickly. So SNAP recipients who are considered able-bodied adults without dependents, or ABODs for short, that's like the acronym used, must meet the work requirements unless they are exempt. Who is an ABOD? And that is where this law changed things. So before, an able-bodied adult without dependents, before this bill passed, so that means an able-bodied adult is somebody who is between the age of 18 and 54, who does not have a dependent living with them, under 18, and able-bodied, which means they don't have, a physical disability. And then before this bill, there were exemptions made for people who were experiencing homelessness, for veterans and former foster youth, so kids who just aged out of the foster program. And then it used to be that states could waive the requirement for work requirements in total if unemployment was over 10%. Illinois met that threshold. So Illinois has not had this work requirement issue for years. This bill eliminated that statewide waiver and made it much more difficult. In addition, you'll see here, before this bill passed, it was adults aged 18 to 54 were considered able-bodied adults. Now it's 18 to 64. So, call all those people in your life who stopped working because they were done and tell them to get back to work in order to get SNAP, because that's what this bill is telling them. They lowered the age of dependent from 18 to 14, which is wild, and then removed those exceptions that I mentioned before. So again, Illinois is going to have a broader definition and give more exemptions than this federal law necessarily is strictly mandating. But you can see the way that people who used to not have to submit work requirements are now falling into this new definition, this new bucket, right? So just to give some numbers with that, the expanded work requirements take effect on February 1st. So that is just a month and a half away. The Illinois Department of Human Services is estimating that 340,000 people in Illinois are at risk of losing their benefits after that change. The reason for that being, there are more than that number of people who are considered an ABOD, but the Department of Human Services is estimating that this is the number of people that are going to face significant barriers in order to prove their working hours, right? If all of the at-risk ABODs, which are on average single-person households receiving about $200 a month, lost their benefits, Illinois communities could experience an estimated $110 million in lost economic activity each month. And that gets back to the conversation we were having about the way SNAP is an economic generator, right? Now it's $200 a month these people were spending on groceries, right? That money disappears, right? The economy shrinks. Any questions about work requirements? Yeah.
So what is the other side saying regarding,
Yeah.
like, why can't they work?
Yes.
The problem was because I know that, like, for my job, like 40% of people that I know are on SNAP are babies. Yeah. So
A lot of children.
I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah. Yes, great question. So she said, what do we say to the people who are saying, well, why aren't those folks working? Like, why is that such a big problem? And that is, you've really hit the nail of what I consider a major like advocacy education push that needs to happen around this issue. This has been framed in a way where reasonable people hear work requirements and assume nobody was working, and this is just going, like, this just means you have to be working in order to receive the SNAP benefits. That's not a bad thing. But these have been tried before. There is endless scientific and statistical proof that work requirements don't work, that they only punish a person for losing their job or not being able to prove that they, worked X amount of hours, and it just causes people to go hungry rather than to get a job. They're historically, they're rooted in like the very first work requirement rule was created out of like very racist ideology, which is also not shocking to the way policy is made. But I don't have yet like super succinct talking points, but it is absolutely, that's my plan when Springfield kind of picks up this year, is to be able to like very easily answer people's questions about work requirements and prove that they don't work. Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Okay, last change I'm going to talk about. Immigrant eligibility. Now, this one has definitely made a splash because of the political situation our immigrant neighbors find themselves in, right? I like to emphasize on this slide that undocumented immigrants have never been eligible for the SNAP program. So this idea that all of our SNAP money is just going to all of these undocumented immigrants just rolling around in SNAP money is factually incorrect, like a lie, right? They've never been eligible. Are there specific situations where somebody ends up getting it by accident? Of course, there's always mistakes, there's always things that happen. But what the changes to immigrant eligibility in this bill did was remove the ability for a small subsect of documented immigrants for being able to receive SNAP benefits. So you'll see here at the top are the categories of immigrants that are still eligible, and then at the bottom are the categories of immigrants which are no longer eligible for SNAP due to the policy changes, which includes refugee, asylee, humanitarian, parolee. I just like to emphasize too that it is so incredibly difficult for a person to even be officially designated a refugee or asylee, or go through the processes to get that designation, and to then have SNAP, have their food be taken away from them to score some political points here is obviously like very devastating to a community that's already going through so much right now. This is estimated to impact about 16,000 people in Illinois. I will say right now, this change, it says December 1st on my slide, this change has actually not yet rolled out because of this lawsuit that has been filed, because there are rules written for this change that directly contradict other definitions and rules about immigrants and immigration in this country. And that is actually the what you mentioned earlier about USDA threatening to withhold money from Democratic states. That is the lawsuit that 21 attorneys general across the country signed on to, including ours. It's about this issue. So IDHS is currently refusing to move forward on rolling back immigrant eligibility for SNAP until like all of that is figured out and settled. So good news, of course, that our immigrant community is still able to receive it. The bad news is we don't know when it's gonna start, right? Okay. So just a quick recap of what we talked about. The major changes here. This bill increases the amount that the state is required to cover to administer the program. It's expanding work requirements, putting more of an administrative burden on individuals, and it is removing SNAP benefits for many legally present immigrants. Any questions? Yeah.
So with the date of when all of this takes place next fall, October afterwards, is there any way that legislation can be enacted to say, this is not legal?
Great question. So the question is kind of like politically, what can we do to stop any of this from happening, right? There are kind of two avenues of thought that we are going through, at least in the anti-hunger and the SNAP world. The first is federally, while it becomes clearer and clearer that this bill, because we didn't even touch the Medicaid stuff, right? It becomes clearer and clearer that this bill is unpopular. There's still not necessarily the political will to undo it. What we would like to see are some anti-hunger champions in Congress pushing to delay the state cost share part of the bill, the one with the $800 million coming to Illinois' desk for at least until 2029, because ideally, people go vote, and then we're able to clean house a little bit and hopefully get a more friendly Congress that could maybe more permanently undo some of this. It's a strategy, right? It's not anything that the food depository alone would be able to make happen, but we are definitely, part of the national group of advocates that are talking about it and willing to lend our support and our voice. I think it's, a good political play. I don't know how it would shake out. The other avenue is while we hope for the best in terms of avoiding the worst of this from the federal level, we still have to live in the reality that like this is the law. And so we have to prepare ourselves and our state legislature to pay and to do what we need to do to raise the money to be able to do it. And, you know, if we raise the money and then it turns out we don't need it, then hopefully we raise the money in a equitable way, and we can use it to do great things, right? Instead of having to pay for a program that we don't currently have to pay that much for. Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly the soullessness of this change is the point. And you didn't even talk about on the last slide when it talks about the immigrant community, like the TV visa recipients are survivors of trafficking. VAWA is the Violence Against Women's Act, which helps protect individuals who experience domestic violence. And yeah, those are two classes of individuals who should have their benefits cut. I mean, it's soulless and it's evil.
Yeah.
The one question I had is the $110 million economic loss portion, is that per month or annually?
That is per month. So, yes. So I should mention that SNAP brings in, I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I do have the numbers to back it up that I can send out. But SNAP brings into the state of Illinois per year about $4 billion. And so in the economic generation calculus, it is estimated to generate about $5 billion plus dollars per year in Illinois. So even just that one portion of people, it's easy to, like that one portion of people per month can easily generate $110 million per month in economic activity when they're like going to the grocery store and spending money. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
The question I have is, how can we do a better job of explaining
Yes.
to every business that receives SNAP dollars how incredibly destructive this policy is going to be to
Yeah.
the economy and to their businesses
Yeah.
and to their bottom line?
Yep.
It tends to be
Yep.
that's the part that makes them shake the most.
Yeah.
I don't think they are fully
No.
comprehending the ramifications.
I totally agree with you. The question is like, how are we, like, this is a gigantic economic loss for not just the state of Illinois, but potentially the country, depending on how many states end up losing the program. How do we get businesses to fight as hard as they do for stuff we don't like to fight for this? I don't have a perfect answer. I will say that that is absolutely an avenue that the Food Depository has been walking down. We have created we have created panels that have been televised, that we also brought a panel to Springfield to do a subject matter hearing back over veto session about SNAP. And in both of those panels, we always include a representative from the Illinois Retail Merchants Association, or IRMA. They are pretty bought in on understanding how devastating this bill is going to be for the merchants that are part of their association. And it's a pretty major one, right? I joke all of the time when I say frequently, like, help me help you. I'm trying to prevent you from losing all of your business or shrinking the economy or doing things you won't like. I unfortunately don't have a direct line to Walmart, but it would be definitely a help me help you situation for, you know, it is a little bit shocking to me that a company like Walmart didn't say anything when this passed. I know that they didn't say anything. I agree with you. Yeah.
The likelihood of another bill that would
That would undo it.
undo this, it'll never get signed by him.
Yeah, well, the one thing I will say, and this is speaking as me and not as a food depository representative, to be clear, I do not see our president as like a major ideologue so much as just trying to like go along with the movement and the moment. So should there be like a true gigantic changing of the tides where he's like, oh, well, this will make me popular to sign something like this. Again, it's a extremely slim chance. That's just how I read him, but yeah. Did you want to?
A lot of grocers, like, if they have produce or products that are, nearing their
Yeah.
end of shelf life,
Yep.
do donate to Greater Chicago Food Depository. I'm aware of that. One thing, if we could find a partner organization that could estimate what that over $1 billion of lost economic activity will translate into how many businesses and jobs lost.
Yeah.
One fun way for Chicago Food Depository to kind of punch back could be providing that data as those groceries are being translated over to the staff and having them, for one, become aware of what's coming around the corner and pushing that on to the leaders above.
I think you're bringing up some great points, and the question remains how are we getting this economic message out, right? How are we ensuring that our retailers and our grocery stores understand just how devastating this bill is going to be, and the fact that they might close and lose their jobs too. I think that there is a lot of room for the food depository and for all anti-hunger advocates to really step up as leaders in that moment. I will get into in my next section here some ways in which the food depository is rallying to create advocacy moments. It's not in these slides just yet, but I'll follow up with this group when it launches. We are in the process of helping launch like a statewide coalition called Save Our SNAP, or SOS, which I think is going to be where hopefully utilizing the most resources, we can get some of that economic message out through a statewide coalition that doesn't have the word Chicago in the logo, which is hindering our ability to kind of get our message out a little bit.
To that point, though,
Yeah.
the financial weenies at Walmart and Jewel-Osco, Albertson, and all the major corporations, when they see this, they know already what this is going to do to them.
I know, that's why, I will tell you, I am surprised that Walmart didn't fight against this when it was being, they went back and forth on it for months, so I honestly am as surprised because it was shooting themselves in the foot by not advocating against this, yeah.
I think Walmart's probably done that math, and I figured that's okay, but what they would not see coming.
I think it was bad math.
Not longer be eligible, no one can redeem their SNAP.
Right. They did bad math, yeah.
No, not the workers are still eligible for that, but they are removed from the program. Well,
Yeah, but I don't think that they didn't consider that states could lose it in entirety. Like they would be removed from Illinois because Illinois wouldn't have it anymore. Yeah. Yeah. It's gone. Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. It's a great question. Yeah.
I'm on disability for years, and I have friends who require disability. It takes 2 to 3 years.
Yes. Yes. I know.
With all the cups that Social Security office.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's making that call? Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
But they're not considered disabled.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great question. So the question for those online is who is determining what is considered able-bodied in terms of the SNAP program. The good news here for the state of Illinois is that the Illinois Department of Human Services is using what is called self-attestation to determine if a person can meet the work requirements or not. So even if the person is not officially disabled through the federal government, they can self-attest that they are like physically or mentally incapable of meeting the work requirements, and the state is ready and willing to accept that. I don't know exactly what those like documents look like. I know they're being created and being trained on them right now, so there's some questions of what that still means for sure, but that is still one of the exemptions that exists, and a person should not have to officially be designated as disabled by the federal government in order to be considered disabled for this. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, right. But there are certainly people like him that, yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, and so the question being, is this going to hold people back from applying to and receiving SNAP benefits? The answer is undeniably yes, and that is undeniably the goal, their point. They don't care if people are working more. They don't care if to prove this or that or the other. All they want is to make it even more difficult to receive the benefits at all, and so you give up on it. Like, that's their goal, yeah. Yeah, sorry. In the light, yeah.
How would this impact senior citizens? Well, there's a program where they're living in senior facilities, and they use the SNAP benefits to feed them, and
Yeah.
nonsense. How will that impact them?
Yeah, that's a great question. How are these changes going to impact our seniors? The somewhat good news is that the expansion of work requirements is through the age 64. So anybody who's 65 and up is automatically exempt from having to do the additional work requirements. There's a lot more, of course, to be said in terms of continued access and making sure our senior citizens and our older adults are receiving like the amount that they need. But the biggest threat to them is the biggest threat to all of us in the elimination of the program in entirety, right? But for the most part, older adults should be kind of outside of the work requirement part, at least, yeah. Okay, I don't want to leave us on a downer. I'm going to leave us on okay, now we're all really angry. What are we going to do about it, right? Yeah, do you have a question? The SNAP money? Like unemployment benefits? I would have to check on how those relate. Yes, but I'm not 100% sure how they kind of calculate the two. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But in the meantime, you need to apply for unemployment and call it the DOT.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
Okay.
Next year, in January, that's the unemployment effect.
Yeah. So the question is about unemployment and link money. The answer is yes, because of work requirements, you needing to be able to prove a certain number of working hours per month. I will say in your case, it would be helpful to try and get an exemption, look through the list of all of the ways the Illinois Department of Human Services is saying that you might be exempt from having to prove your work requirements. If you submit that paperwork early, you won't have to hopefully deal with this really at all. What you're saying is exactly what the point, which is you have unemployment coming in, And to be told you won't get money for food until you get a job is backwards, right? You need to, who's getting a job when they're hungry? Who's doing anything when you're hungry? Yeah. Yeah, I think I have a slide in here at the end that I can pull up. If not, I will definitely email it to Lynn and Monica and make sure that you're getting help, because you should be able to apply, yeah. Okay. So, what happens next? And what can we do to protect SNAP? I know that everything I said here is, one, a downer, and two, just so infuriating, right? I know it, and I live in it, and I totally get it. But the fight to protect SNAP and to ensure that all of our neighbors and all of our community members and everybody in our household gets to remain fed and have the food that they need to thrive does not end. And there's still a lot that we can do to ensure, at least in the state of Illinois, that SNAP remains in place, that as many people as possible are exempt from work requirements, and that our neighbors are supported in the best way possible, right? So just a bit of a recap in terms of what the food depository is doing. You know, we recognize that demand at food pantries are going to increase. We plan on working smarter and harder than ever before, trying to continue to source, prepare, and distribute food as efficiently as possible. And finally, we will continue to lift our voices, work with community partners and the state and local government to limit harm and to do everything we can to continue to address root causes of hunger. I'm going to be throwing some slides at you that have QR codes. I will send these slides to the lovely hosts here, as well as just like clickable links, if that's easier, but just in the meantime. The first thing that you all can do here is join our Advocacy Action Center, which is how Monica found me and was able to ask me to come in. You'll receive our action alerts. We just sent one today about getting the word out for people about work requirements and how to get exemptions. So I'll make sure that you have those as well. We have a monthly legislative update newsletter, and we also host learning webinars. We're gonna do, our next big one is in January. It will be the official kind of unveiling of our policy agenda and our plans in Springfield. Should be well attended and lots to say. Next, if you are interested in kind of deepening your advocacy skills, going a little bit beyond, you know, sending that email or making a phone call, we have an opportunity called Champion Advocate. This is a new program. The plan is to launch in January, where we will be giving folks a quick overview of the SNAP cuts as we just gave here, and talking points, so people are more able to easily digest and talk to their loved ones and their networks and their community about what is happening and why it matters. In addition, if you're interested, you would have the opportunity to learn skills in elected official engagement, community outreach, sharing your SNAP story, should you have one yourself, and we have opportunities to engage you in all of those things, should you be interested. We'd love to have folks who use SNAP themselves to come and advocate with us on this. Like, that voice is the most important to us. And finally, if you want to bring somebody like myself to your local group, so I'm on the kind of advocacy side of things, so more policy, but we've got a whole community engagement team that is going all around the city and suburbs, to neighborhood action groups, to local PTAs, to community organizations, to faith groups, to churches, to schools, to synagogues, to all of them. If you want to have somebody come in and give this presentation and share resources and share ways that people can get involved, and to make sure that the people in your life know what is coming and how to get involved, here is the link to get us to come back. And that is the whole presentation. Okay, here we go. Here's the work requirement exemption. Let me do a slideshow. And I will send this to everybody so that, yeah. Okay. So this is from the Department of Human Services. So you'll see physical or mental limitations that impact your ability to work. And again, this is self-attestation. So you just have to say it for yourself.
All right, Molly, thank you so much. Molly and I met about a month ago in a Zoom room, and the minute Molly mentioned that there is a possibility of her coming to our community, I knew that was the right person to have in this room. I wanted really quickly to acknowledge elected officials that we have in this room with us tonight. One of them had to run, walked out this room. We had Mary Beth Canty that represents District 54. We have Nicole Grassi that represents District 53. And we have Congressman, whoops, I did it again, 2026 brain, Commissioner Kevin Morrison. The reason why I am acknowledging, other than those are my dear friends, is you are looking at people who fight for those SNAP benefits to stay in every single day. But you need to demand the other side to fight for it as well, because this is a nonpartisan issue. Food security is a nonpartisan issue. And Molly, one of the things that I love what you mentioned is the stigma that is around the SNAP benefits. Why aren't those people working? Well, you're looking at one. You're looking at single parents with 2 jobs that I have to every single month make a decision. Do I pay my rent? Do I put food on the table for my children? I want to stay in a neighborhood that is safe. I want good schools for my children. I want to have a police department and a fire department and a hospital that is not 2, 3, 4 hours away. That's why I choose to stay in this neighborhood, but it comes with a cost. So when I say when SNAP benefits affects one family, one person, it literally affects the entire community, because housing and SNAP benefits, it's all in one pool. Thank you so much to everyone. I know it's extremely cold, so thank you so much for coming out tonight. And if you have any questions, we do have more resources on the table. This was also, thank you, Mike, live streamed. So that means, correct me, it was recorded, right? So you can share it with community if you are a SNAP recipient, or if you know anyone who might be, please share those extremely important changes, bad changes that come to SNAP benefits. Thank you so much.